Hello YouTube, what's up? Today I'm gonna talk about why I figured out that this world has to be an illusion, and I think the reasons are very clear. I would tell you why. Today I played a couple of StarCraft games and I lose them all, and I think, maybe I'm gonna quit StarCraft 2, so maybe I would have time to do some videos. Yes, do some videos. And recently I figured out that this world and life must be an illusion. Okay, I will give you reasons. It's very, very simple. Everyone with when they're in their right mind can figure this out. It's very simple. Very simple. Okay. First, here's the thing. Here's a question, very important question. Where do we come from? By we I mean humans. Where do humans come from? You would say, well, it must be, the mainstream, whatever people think, most people would think. It must be come from, animals. People are from animals, and animals from maybe plants, and plants from whatever, and whatever from the material world. And the inanimate world, those stones and water, and I don't know, just from something that has no life. But I don't think that's possible. I'm not talking about biology, biological body. I'm not saying that the body is not possible to come from, the material world. What I'm talking about is that our intelligence, our mind, our wisdom, I don't know how to say that, our mind, our consciousness, in other words, cannot come from the, those material things. Like, you just cannot have consciousness. These things cannot produce consciousness. Like, the water, the stones, stones, the earth, whatever it is, they cannot produce consciousness. They cannot evolve, consciousness. It does not make any sense. I don't think it makes any sense. They cannot have intelligence. They simply cannot. It's simply no way that we can come from this. We come from this material world. That our consciousness, our intelligence cannot be. I mean, anybody who is honest instead of superstitious, anybody who is honest and should conclude in this. Anybody who is honest instead of stupid should conclude that we cannot come from the material world. This is simply not possible. An intelligence or consciousness must exist before the material world, the physical world that we can see. It must exist before the physical world. It cannot come from the physical world. This is why it must exist before the physical world. And here's another thing. I don't think that both exist. It's less likely for the physical world and the intelligence or consciousness to exist in the first place at the same time. There must be only one thing. There must be only one thing that exists at first. In other words, at first there must be only one, either intelligence or material physical world. And if the intelligence cannot come from the physical world, then it must be that there's only one thing that existed, that's intelligence. And the matter or material world or the physical world does not really actually exist. I mean, why? How can you explain that if the material world does not exist? How can we see and hear and everything seems so real? I mean, it will seem weird that this world does not really exist. It's all made up by our mind. It's all made up by our consciousness, or whatever you call it. It's all made up. It's completely made up. It's just not out there. There's nothing out there. Just simply made up by our mind. But how can the mind make this all up? Does the mind have this function? Does mind have this power to make up the world, to create vision when there's nothing out there to be seen? I mean, to create a sound when there's nothing to be heard. Does the mind have this capability to do this, to do all these things? Well, yes. It's very simple, because the mind has that function. The mind can do this, can create a world that does not exist, and you can see and feel and hear and everything. This is proven by dreams. Very, very simple. When we are sleeping and when we dream, there's a world out there that we can see, and it's very clear, high definition world, and we can hear and we can do everything that we do in our daily life. And in our dream, the mind, it shows the capability of the mind to create a world, to create a vision and sound without the need the world to the physical world to exist, and without the need to other people to exist. That proves that the mind has that power. Okay, isn't it weird? In your dreams, you can walk around. You can walk around the world and you can see the same thing from different angles. When you see the same thing, like a computer from different angles, it would have different image. You can look, like there must be a 3D to 2D calculation. Like this is how the 3D game, or the games, how games work. Everything is in 3D coordinates, and then they're converted to 2D or the screen coordinates, and then they're rendered to the screen, and there will be a calculation that's pretty not that complicated, but there's a lot of calculations to be done when you wanted to render a 3D world into a screen. And that's what the mind can do. The mind can imagine a 3D world, and then it can produce a 2D picture, like a screen in your mind. You can see things, and we can see things in 2D, And the mind has a capability to produce a 2D screen with the imaginary 3D world, and it can look at this, observe the world from different points in that 3D world. The mind has a capability to calculate all these visual, image. So the mind must know, what's called that's called linear algebra. All these matrices and coordinates, 3D vectors. The mind must know all these formulas to calculate a 2D image from a 3D world. The mind must have that capability. And also creates 3D sound. And the world that you dreamed, when you listen to things from near or far, you'll hear different level of, I don't know how to say that, some 3D sound, just like in games. The mind knows how to calculate all things. The distance and the sound, the volume, the volume that you can hear the thing is depending on the distance. And also, how the world looks like depends on your position and orientation of your eye in the dream. And mind has all the capability to calculate all the things. How come? Why the mind would have all the capability of doing all their calculations of a 3D world to 2D screen, and sound, 3D sound to your ears, this okay. And you can also touch a lot of things. You can do a lot of cool things in the dream. And this shows that if the mind has the power to imagine a world and let you see and hear and everything, then it is so simple that, for the mind to just create a world that doesn't exist, like our daily life. It's very simple for the mind. The mind can do it. Very simple for it. The mind has the power to do it. It's very simple. It's actually easy peasy, You can do it when you're sleeping. You're not even thinking hard. You're just sleeping. You're relaxing and sleeping, and the mind can create a world that does not exist. How much easier, even easier when you wake up, when you awake, the mind is more, running its full power. It would be even more, even easier to create a world that does not exist for the mind. To the mind, it's so damn easy to create a world that does not exist. Why not? If the intelligence or the mind cannot come from the physical world of material things, then the mind must exist before the material things. Then the material things, because the mind can create everything like vision and sound without anything to be out there, then the material things does not even need to exist. Does not even to be necessary to exist now. And if it's not necessary to exist, why bother? Why bother to exist? So this proves that the mind is the only thing that exists, and there's no outside world. There's simply no outside world. Okay, so this proves one thing, that we must be God. We must be God. There's no other way. Why? Because our brain, our mind is, our mind created the world. It is our mind that created this world. Nothing, it cannot be anything else. In the Bible, it says that God created the world, but it is our mind that created the world, and that it proves that we must be God. There's no other way. It cannot be possible. There's no way. There's no other possibility. There's no other way to explain this world if we are not God, and we create the world. Because the world only exists in our mind, and we must be the creator. Who else can be? I'm not saying I am God. I'm saying we are, when we add up together, we are one mind. We must be the same person. We must be the same mind. We must be the same one. It looks like yeah, it looks like different because it's a mind makes it feel like so. A mind would have the mind would have a feeling of individual. I am me. The mind has that created concept of I. But it's very simple. It's like it's just the way the mind thinks. There's I, and yes, there are individuals. I believe that there's individuals, but we must be connected in some way together, like internet. Our mind must be, or our consciousness, whatever, intelligence must be connected with an invisible force, and we must be somehow connected to be one whole. And some people call it consciousness, like universal or universe consciousness, whatever they call it. We must be a whole. We must be a whole connected together. There's only one power, and that power must be to be able to calculate, like a computer, like to be able to figure things, to work things out, to calculate. That must I think there's just one thing. There's just only need to exist one thing that can calculate, that can manipulate numbers or whatever it is, or manipulate information, and that's it. And that's the God that has created the world, and we are just part of. We're just like, in some sense, the part of God. I mean, just like a small part of God. And with this, I have, you must reach one conclusion. Because you are the one who are constantly creating. In other words, we are still like running this world. Yes, exactly. We can use this word. Just like computer running a video game. Our mind, our consciousness is constantly running this world. This world cannot exist without us running them. Like a game cannot be played without a computer that's running it. And the world cannot exist without our mind running it. So, this proves one thing. This life is an illusion. This life cannot be real. I mean, just in a higher sense than this world, this life is not real. This life is simply a simulation, a game. And we must, yes, we will die. We will die. The simulated me, the dreamed me, the made up me must die one day, isn't it? But there is a me, is that computer or that mind, that consciousness or intelligence, whatever you call it, that's running this world. Something inside me that's running this world cannot die. Because it existed before the material world even existed. It exists before the world is created. It must be part of God. And it cannot die, simply cannot die. It is like forever, it lives forever. And here's another thing. It is totally possible, we are living in this life, like people have two hands, two arms, two legs, and head, people like this. But there might be a world that's completely different, just like video games, StarCraft and LOL, like League of Legends, Dota, whatever game, like Call of Duty. Games can be completely different. And Clash of Clans, Angry Birds. Games can be completely different, and this made me think that it can be totally possible that God created a couple worlds that's completely different. Maybe one world is a racing game that every day you do is driving a car or something like that, or you are just a car that's trying to survive in that world. It can be true. I don't know what God has created, whatever worlds. It can be completely different. Like people can have 3 arms or 10 legs. We don't know, because this, God can create whatever worlds that they like, but in this world, everything like that, this, and maybe God has created other worlds, like other games that's also fun to play, also fun to experience, totally different. This is awesome. That's like Buddha or whatever. How do you read this? Buddha. Oh, okay. It has. He has said long time ago, 1,000 years ago, that this world is a dream, it's not real, it's illusion, anything you can see is not real, you do not even exist. Most people cannot understand it, but today, recently I realized this is so simple, this is just very easy, just think about it, you will figure this out. Buddha has once figured it out, it's very simple. It just needs you to honestly think. You just honestly think. It gotta be like that. It gotta be unreal. It gotta be simulation. It cannot be real. Simply, there's no way it can be real. That's it. And that's a conclusion. And that's it. There's no other way. We do not even need any evidence or proof. We just think. When we just think about it, we just know. We just know. It's just as simple as that. think it's now this is for this video, and maybe see you next time.